Hi, Charles Cherney here, and I wanted to review today the 4 kinds of offers buyers make. And I'm speaking to this as a top agent in Cambridge and Somerville, Massachusetts. So number 4 is an offer with a mortgage contingency and a pre-approval letter attached to the offer. So in the Cambridge and Somerville market, it's not uncommon for a buyer to do at least 20% down and to have a loan for 80% of the purchase price and a pre-approval letter written in the last 60 days that states that the buyer's been pre-approved for a purchase of X dollars with 20% down, and it makes clear that they're good to go, but the offer is contingent on the loan's approval. This is a standard offer, right? And, the variations on this might just be informed by the size of the down payment. Is the buyer doing 10% down, 20% down, 30% down, 50% down? They have a percentage of the purchase price as a down payment. The remaining portion is the loan amount. They have a pre-approval letter from a reputable local lender that's been recently put out on their behalf. They attach it to the offer, and we might call this the standard offer, right? It's an offer with a mortgage contingency and an updated pre-approval letter. Number 3 on the list would be an offer with no mortgage contingency, but rather than proof of funds, the buyer submits the pre-approval letter. So imagine the purchase price is $1 million and the buyer makes an offer for $1 million and they submit a pre-approval letter that says they're pre-approved to purchase with 20% down on a purchase price of $1 million. So they're getting a loan for $800,000. However, this buyer in this sort of offer has removed the safety net from the offer of the mortgage contingency. And so you may ask yourself, why would the buyer take such a risk if they need to get the loan to win the property? And the reason is they're in a multiple offer situation and they're probably aiming to compete with cash buyers who do not have a mortgage contingency. This kind of offer is sometimes called a fake cash offer in that they don't have proof of funds as a buyer to show they have the full purchase price in cash, but they're aiming to compete with buyers who do. And so they remove the safety net from the transaction, which is the mortgage contingency. So again, is this a smart move? Look, everyone needs to decide what move and what kind of offer they're going to make. But if you are a buyer who needs to get a loan to complete the purchase, you need to take a step back and be extremely thoughtful about your removal of the mortgage contingency from your offer. Now, how is it that people do this, right? What leads them to take this risk? Well, they're in a conversation with a local lender. Perhaps they've entered into a pre-commitment program where everything but the appraisal has been done. Perhaps they've imagined in a worst case scenario where the property appraises for less than the purchase price. They have access to funds to make a larger down payment to still get the lesser loan amount approved, right? So they've kind of walked through worst case scenarios with the lender they're going to work with and maybe are in that lender's pre-commitment program to be comfortable taking this risk, right? Or maybe they have family that's their backstop if they need to call for cash, right? So if you're going to play this offer and make an offer without a mortgage contingency where you need a loan to complete the purchase, you need to really understand what you're doing and have kind of thought through worst case scenarios and be prepared to solve them should they emerge. Okay, number 2 on the list is a cash offer with proof of funds for the purchase price. So let's imagine it's $1 million offer. The buyer, instead of a pre-approval letter for a loan, just submits a document or documents that make known, this is the proof of funds piece, that they have $1 million in cash or in investments outside of retirement accounts that they can convert to cash to be the buyer. Now, proof of funds can be redacted statements, or it could be that the buyer has a letter from a financial wealth management advisor or the equivalent, speaking to their ability to complete the purchase without a loan up to X dollars, right? So it's $1 million home. The proof of funds might state that they can complete a home purchase without a loan for $1 million, and the signer gives their name, title, and how they can be reached if the listing agent wishes to confirm the veracity of the letter. Otherwise, it might be a series of redacted bank statements. You have X dollars in your checking account and so much in your investment accounts. And you put those together and they add up to the purchase price of your offer. So this is the cash offer with proof of funds with no mortgage contingency. However, the buyer is still planning to get a loan set up before closing. Okay. So it's not a true cash offer. It's a cash offer by definition because the buyer has met the test at the offer stage to show they can pay cash. However, they're still planning to get a loan set up prior to the closing. They're just going to travel through the transaction without the safety net of the mortgage contingency. So they need to give themselves the time their lender indicates is necessary to be ready for the closing and the loan to be in place. That's typically at least a month. Okay. So this is the cash offer with proof of funds, no mortgage contingency, where the buyer, even though they have no mortgage contingency, plans to get a loan set up before closing. In this regard, they're similar to the previous type of offer. It's just that they're one better in that they have proof of funds. And then number one on the list is the true cash offer. The buyer has proof of funds for the purchase price, and they do plan to pay cash for the property. So say the property is on for $1 million, they make a proof of funds offer for $1 million, and they can show they have that much money, and they actually do not plan to get a loan set up before closing. This buyer plans to pay cash. In this regard, they can accelerate the closing date if this is something that the seller seeks. It could close in 2 or 3 weeks because they have the cash and they don't need to wait on a loan's approval and go through an appraisal process and get a commitment. None of that's happening in the true cash offer. And the true cash offer is rare. It's an advantage to a buyer, of course, in a multiple offer situation, as cash is king, and a true cash offer that can close quickly is, the top of the mountain. So look, to take this from the top, if you're in the market and you need a mortgage, you're going to make a traditional offer with a pre-approval letter and a mortgage contingency. If you're competing in a multiple offer situation and you've thought through your options with your lender, you may consider removing the mortgage contingency, even though you still need to get a loan set up before closing. If you take that path, be very thoughtful. Make sure you own your worst case scenarios. Number two, you could make a cash offer with proof of funds to be competitive, but still plan to get a loan set up before closing. This is quite a common move in Cambridge and Somerville. And number one, you could be cash buyer with proof of funds who plans to pay cash, and that puts you in the number one spot in terms of the type of offers made. Now, some people will say, why does it matter if an offer includes a mortgage contingency? And the only reason it matters in the minds of a seller is it introduces another element of risk in the transaction, because what if for some reason your loan is not approved? Therefore, then the deal is off, right? Because you're exiting because you didn't get your mortgage through your mortgage contingency. Then you exit the transaction and the seller's back to square one and has to start over with selling the property. So, it's not as if you'd expect your mortgage not to be approved, but there's things that can happen. What if the appraisal comes in for less than the purchase price and you as a buyer cannot put down more money to offset the low appraisal? What if as a buyer you lose your job and at the point that the mortgage commitment is due, the lender does not issue the mortgage commitment because now your source of income, your job, is no longer in place, and therefore they don't approve the loan. So any contingency in any offer introduces another avenue or exit for a buyer. And so a seller is always seeking to weigh risk, and they're always likely to prefer offers for the highest number with the fewest contingencies, because typically those reduce the risk the seller is exposed to in the transaction. This is not to say there's anything wrong with an offer with a down payment and a mortgage contingency and a pre-approval for X% of the purchase price. It's all perfectly fine. But in describing the kinds of offers, it's important one understand them, especially in a market that can generate multiple offers that are competitive, where more than one offer is presented, because we can appreciate and understand in a competitive bidding situation, it's the case that the seller is likely to receive offers with fewer contingencies, if any at all. And of course, the biggest and most significant contingency is the mortgage contingency. And in Cambridge and Somerville, in multiple offer situations, very often the mortgage contingency goes away. The purpose of this video is to help you understand the kinds of offers people consider and make. My name is Charles Cherney. I'm a top agent here in Cambridge and Somerville. Reach out at any time by text, telephone, or email if myself and my business partner, Maggie D, can be of service to you in helping you understand offers and which offer to make, and if you're a seller, how to receive, review, and consider offers presented. Be in touch. Take care.